When the second prince heard Lu Muyan's lofty ambitions, he could no longer underestimate her. Even if this woman's strength wasn't that great, but with her countless, versatile means, it might really be possible for her to enter the top 100. Can I leave now? He really didn't want to stay here any longer. His teammates were all teleported out of this space, so he had to make some plans individually. Lu Muyan nodded, please go ahead. She had already extorted a huge amount of spiritual stones and it was useless for her to have the second prince remain. When the second prince heard her say this, he got up immediately. The wounds on his body were indeed much better and he couldn't help but inwardly praise that the medicine was indeed good. He originally wanted to ask her whether she still had any more of that sort of pill, but he held back when he remembered the price of 10,000 spiritual stones. Just when he lifted his foot and took a few steps, Lu Muyan suddenly called out to him from behind. Second prince. He turned his head and looked at her quizzically, is there anything else? Don't let it be because she changed her mind and wasn't going to let him go after receiving those spiritual stones? I suddenly remembered that I have some extra red jade tablets that are useless and want to sell them. Would you like one? Lu Muyan looked at the second prince with sparkling eyes, as if he were a gold mountain. The corner of the second prince's lip twitched, and his expression couldn't resist but turned darker. Did she take him as a foolish spender? No need. It only costs 10,000 spiritual stones, you really won't consider it? Lu Muyan continued to ask with a smile. Thank you for your kindness. I really don't need it. The second prince's tone contained a hint of gritted teeth, but he was currently on Lu Muyan's territory, and he couldn't let that anger out in his chest, for fear that she would go back on her words. Seeing that he really had no plans to want it, she shrugged and said, I originally wanted to take care of you a bit. But since you don't want it, then forget about it. I won't sell it to you for cheap when the price rises in the future. The second prince took a deep breath and pulled out a smile, thank you for your kindness. I really don't need it. But it wouldn't take long for his intestines to turn green with regret. All right. Then you can go, be careful along the way. Lu Muyan gave a big smile. Extorting the second prince of 60,000 spiritual stones really put her in a good mood. The second prince, however, wasn't in a good mood. Why did he want to beat her up the more he saw that beautiful smile? In order to prevent himself from having the urge to go up and strangle her, he immediately turned around and left. When he passed Luo Qinghe's corpse, there was a haze in his eyes. If it weren't for Luo Qinghe instigating him, he wouldn't be so humiliated today, nor have such heavy losses. It was truly too cheap for this person to die. As soon as the second prince exited the area, he noticed the presence of many people. He was too weak to fight any longer, so he released a flying mount and quickly left. After he left, Fu Chen asked Lu Muyan, we're just going to let him go like this? Aren't you afraid of his revenge in the future? This lesson will definitely be unforgettable for him for the rest of his life. Lu Muyan curbed the smile on her face, revenge? Don't worry, he's a smart person. Then that's good. Yi Qinghan glanced at the array that was destroyed by the second prince and said, the array is already destroyed, are we still going to guard a stump and wait for hares to bump into it? Today's matter might be spread, let's move to another place. Lu Muyan had already noticed the aura of the few waves of people not far away, but she didn't point it out. Yi Qinghan also discovered the hidden people and the corner of his lip rose into a vague arc, Meanwhile, the hidden people felt their scalps go numb after seeing Lu Muyan extorting a huge sum of spiritual stones from the second prince, especially Ji Xian and Yan Jun. So it turned out that the spiritual stones she wanted from them back then really weren't a black price. After resting for a day in the canyon, Lu Muyan and the others set off for other places to wait for fish to be hooked. Luo Li and the several teams didn't continue to follow, and each went to compete for jade tablets to advance in their ranks. Although the news of the second prince and his party's defeat spread in the competition space, but with the increase of Lu Muyan's points, more people wanted the jade tablets in her hands. Everywhere they went, there would always be many sword masters from elite teams who would take the initiative to send them more jade tablets. In such a way, more than a month passed, and when there were still only 5 days from the final match left, Lu Muyan's ranking advanced to second place and the first place was still the mysterious Chu Han. The rest of her team also advanced into the top 100. Even if there were huge changes in the next 5 days, they wouldn't be pulled down the top 500, and entering the finals was practically an ironclad matter. After all, there were only so many jade tablets, and even if the others skyrocketed in the next few days, they wouldn't be able to pull much of their rankings down. On this day, they were resting on the top of a mountain. Yun Zmo saw the jade tablet flickering and took a closer look. The auction hosted by the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance will be held in the central city in 2 days. Yun Zmo put the jade tablet away and said to the several people. Fu Chen also looked at the information carefully. The Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance is still largely collecting auction items for this auction. I think many of contestants will take out the items they've found in this space for auction. That's only of course. Every auction in the central area is selected at this time precisely to obtain the spiritual items and spiritual herbs contestants found. If the major forces find it useful, they'll use money to buy it themselves. Mu Yi said. Shifeng thought about it for a bit then suggested, how about we return directly to the city and wait for the end of the semifinals? Each of them now had a large number of identity jade tablets on them. Although other people couldn't overtake them in the last few days due to the limited number of jade tablets, but they may also become a public target to snatch their jade tablets. I also think the same. For the sake of safety, let's go back to the city and wait. Yi Qinghan said. His goal was to advance to the top 100 to begin with, and he was guaranteed to enter the finals, so there wasn't any need to risk due to greed. Maybe there are teams who already started to join forces to deal with us. Lu Muyen also agreed with this proposal and thought the same as them. In order to prevent any variables from occurring, let's go to the central city to rest now and wait for the end of the semi-final. Others naturally had no objection. They didn't expect to advance to the top 100 when they entered the competition this time, so they were very satisfied with such a result and didn't want to lose big for something small. Lu Muyen just had a bad premonition that if they didn't leave now, they would be in danger, so she had Bing Ji transform into his original form and, together with Yi Qing Han's Golden Eagle King, Qi, they carried the two teams and quickly flew towards the central city. Just 1 hour after they left, 3 squadrons consisting of many elite teams and more than 400 sword masters stepped into the area where they were before, and with only one look, it was obvious that they were coming for them. Leader, we've searched all over the area. There's no trace of Lu Muyen and the others. Judging from the aura, they should have just left not long ago. A man at peak phase sword sovereign said to the leader. The leader furrowed his brows deeply and ordered without hesitation, quick, chase, don't let them rush back to the central city. Once Lu Muyen and the others hide in the central city and not leave, they would no longer know what to do. After all, one wasn't allowed to fight in the city. Unfortunately, they were a step behind in the end. When they were about to catch up with the two teams, Lu Muyen and the others had already successfully entered the central city. And the 3 temporary alliances formed to deal with them had no choice but to disband. Those who were already in the top 500 returned to the central city one after another, waiting for the auction to start, while the sword masters who were towards the back could only stay outside the city and frantically block those who came to the city to participate in the auction or those who were about to go hide and snatch their jade tablets. Meanwhile, all this had nothing to do with Lu Muyen. She was currently preparing for the auction in 2 days at the inn. One just means to be super regretful. Not sure where the saying comes from though. My bad for the late update. Life caught up. The news spread that Lu Muyen's 2 groups didn't step out of their inn ever since returning to the central city. Many people who had their ideas on them were extremely disappointed, and some even regretted that they didn't gather forces earlier to attack them. Meanwhile, in the past 2 days, whether it was the people who had gathered enough jade tablets to enter the top 500 in the rankings, or those who were facing elimination, they all poured into the central city. They only had one goal, and that was to participate in the grandest and most valuable auction in the competition space. Many swordmasters even came with clan missions, just for the few finale auction items. Lu Muyen had spent the past few days refining pills. Although she had collected spiritual stones from Ji Xian, Yan Jun, and the second prince, but she couldn't guarantee that she would win all the items she needed at the auction, so she still had to do some preparation. 2 days later, when there was still 2 hours before the auction starts, Lu Muyen called for her teammates. Muyen, it's still too early for the auction. Are we going now? Yi Qinghan just felt that Lu Muyen had asked them to come out early because there was some sort of situation. Lu Muyen smiled and asked the few people, do you all want to earn spiritual stones? Of course we do, but how do we make money? Fu Chen looked at Lu Muyen with interest. Having asked such a question, she must have some good idea. The others also set their gazes on her. They basically didn't have much spiritual stones on them, but they heard that such large-scale, high-level trade fairs all auctioned with spiritual stones. They originally were only going to join in the fun and have a look, but now hearing Lu Muyen ask such a question, they couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope ignite in them. If one could buy what they wanted, then only a fool wouldn't want to earn spiritual stones. Besides the top 10 places in the semifinals having rewards, the rankings in the top 500 have little effect, right? Lu Muyen didn't answer, but asked instead. Yi Qinghan replied, it doesn't matter. It's just in case of any change in the next few days. As long as the ranking is within the top 400, you can definitely enter the finals. The rankings in the preliminary round and the semi-finals only determines whether you can advance or not and doesn't matter much in the following competitions. Then that's good. Lu Muyen said with a smile, let's auction the identity jade tablets we have. What? Auction identity jade tablets? Fu Chen asked in surprise. Lu Muyen nodded, my ranking is 2nd, so I can sell some jade tablets. It doesn't matter if my ranking is 9th or 10th, it's fine as long as I can get the rewards. In the semi-finals, as long as the sword masters entered the top 10, they could choose 3 spiritual items among 10, regardless of their ranking, so this also gave her a loophole. Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up and said with a smile, yeah. We're currently ranked in the top 100. We can take out some jade tablets to auction. As long as we keep ourselves in the top 400, we can also exchange for a large amount of spiritual stones to participate in the auction. We kill 2 birds with 1 stone. There's no substantial difference between the 50th ranking and the 500th ranking in the semi-finals, and it all only meant that they could advance into the finals. Muyen's method is excellent. Fu Chen couldn't help but praise. Why couldn't they come up with such a method to get spiritual stones? Mui thought about it for a bit and asked with a smile, will anyone want to buy the jade tablets? Of course there'll be people who want it. And the price when auctioning the red jade tablets might even be doubled at the auction. Lu Muyen said definitively. In fact, there were less red jade tablets compared to other jade tablets. There must be many people who lacked jade tablets of this color. Plus, the red jade tablet had the least points, so they would definitely earn a huge amount by auctioning off red jade tablets. We have a lot of red jade tablets on us. I believe there are still many sword masters who haven't collected all 7 colors of jade tablets. If we take out the jade tablets to auction, these people will definitely buy them. A light flashed past Yi Qinghan's eyes. Although he came from a clan in a large kingdom, but the eastern region was the weakest of the 4 regions. The spiritual stones of his clan were all obtained through trading spirit pets. They didn't have mineral veins like other clans from large kingdoms, so he didn't have many spiritual stones. Ling Fei Yang asked with a smile, then where do we go to auction the jade tablets? Should we take it directly to the auction for consignment? Lu Muyen thought for a bit, then said, let's go to the auction place to ask first. I think that no other sword master had ever auctioned jade tablets before, so I don't know if they'll accept it or not. Sure. Everyone had hope in their hearts and they followed Lu Muyen, all in high spirits, to the main hall where the largest auction in the central city was located. The news that they left the inn early was also spread to the ears of elite teams from various kingdoms. Elder brother, why did Lu Muyen and the others go to the auction hall so early? Luo Li ran to Luo Yi as soon as he heard the report. Si Nan and Helian Lai were also in this inn, so they got together to discuss this. Hearing his words, Si Nan stood up with a hint of interest in his eyes and said, let's go take a look and see and well know. Sure, let's go. At the same time, Yan Jun, Ji Xian, and the others also received the news. They didn't know Lu Muyen well enough, but they knew her temperament, so they left the inn and went to the auction hall to find out. Such a situation was also occurring in many places in the city. When Lu Muyen and her party arrived at the auction hall, there were also many sword masters waiting to entrust their items for auction. The waiter immediately greeted them with a smile. Young masters and young misses, please come in. Are you all also here to entrust auction items? Lu Muyen smiled and asked, where's the manager? The waiter paused for a bit, his expression unchanged, then replied with a smile, the manager is dealing with things right now. If young miss wants to auction something, you can just hand it to me. If you want to appraise the value of an item, then you can go to the appraiser first. The manager was so busy, so how could he receive these participating sword masters one by one? He, an attendant, didn't even have such power to arrange that. Lu Muyen also knew that she was making things difficult for him, so she handed over a silver token from her interspatial thing. This is the Ming Alliance token of your Chamber of Commerce. Hand it over to your manager, I believe he will naturally come see me. When the attendant saw the silver token, he took it carefully and said respectfully, young miss, please wait a moment. I'll go find the manager immediately. This was the silver-level distinguished guest token of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance, which made the attendant tremble. He quickly ran to the second floor to call the manager. Meanwhile, Lu Muyan's act of taking out the silver Ming Alliance token also shocked the people present. Even Yi Qinghan, Shifeng, and the others revealed surprise in their eyes. Luo Li and the others who had just entered the hall also took in the scene just now, and the shock in their hearts was no less than others. Even they, elite pupils of superpower kingdoms, didn't have the distinguished guest tokens of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. How did Lu Muyan get recognized by the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance? No one suspected that Lu Muyan's token was fake or obtained from other places. After all, each token of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance had an identity or a verification, and other people couldn't use it at all. Lu Muyan, you actually have the silver distinguished guest token of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. His gaze filled with surprise. Lu Muyan, you actually have the silver distinguished guest token of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. Lu Muyan turned around and saw Luo Li's handsome, bright smile on his face, as if the sun in winter that could shine into one's heart. Is there anything special about the silver Ming Alliance token? She actually didn't know anything about the Ming Alliance token. Luo Li smiled and said, the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance has 3 types of Ming Alliance tokens, that is bronze, silver, and gold. The bronze-colored tokens are distinguished guest tokens, the silver tokens are high-level distinguished guest tokens, and the golden tokens are top-level distinguished guest tokens. A sword master with a silver distinguished guest token who auctions items or buys items in stores under the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance not only can get a 5% discount of the total value, but when their cultivation base reaches a certain level, they can also receive an invitation to a secret realm. Invitation to a secret realm? Lu Muyan asked with a raised eyebrow. There are countless mysterious and secret places on Tianling continent. Not anyone can enter. It requires certain means and power to open it. In addition to the 6 major sects who have such strength, only a few top forces on this continent can do it. Luo Li paused and said, although secret realms are accompanied by danger, but the harvest is definitely worth taking the risk for. However, such an opportunity isn't available to just anyone. I heard that the silver distinguished guest tokens issued by the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance won't exceed 200. So that's why you almost blinded our eyes with the silver distinguished guest token in your hand. Si Nan leaned over with his handsome face and smiled frivolously. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes at him, doesn't matter if you don't have those eyes. Her face didn't change, but she was pondering inwardly. Thinking about it over and over again, she felt that it was impossible for Elder Yi to give her a token of this level. This silver distinguished guest token must have been given to Elder Yi by that guy, Ming Xiu, to give to her. Si Nan was stunned for a moment, then looked aggrieved and blinked his phoenix-type eyes. If I'm blind, how can I appreciate beauties then, especially a little beauty like you? You have no face and skin. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes at him again in amusement. Before Si Nan could answer, he saw a slick-looking middle-aged man come down from the second floor, led by the attendant, to Lu Muyan. Young Miss Lu, please don't take offense for being neglected. Let us talk upstairs. The manager was very sincere. The silver distinguished guest tokens had everyone's identity or a verification, so the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance could use special means to identify the identity of the person who bore the token. Then I will trouble manager. Lu Muyan smiled politely. Seeing that Luoli and the others were all curious, she said to them, if you want to listen, just follow. The fact that she was going to auction the identified jade tablets would soon be known to the public. It wasn't bad to let Luoli, Sinan and the others come as free labor and deterrent. When the two heard it, their eyes lit up and they followed Lu Muyen to the second floor eagerly. The manager took them to a private room on the second floor, and after they sat down, he ordered tea to be served. I wonder what young Miss Lu needs us to do. The manager asked with a smile. Lu Muyen held a silver distinguished guest token, so she enjoyed a lot of privileges. As long as the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance could do it, then, under general circumstances, the requirements must be met. Lu Muyen took a sip of tea and said lightly, I want to borrow the venue to hold a small auction before your auction starts. I only need 2 hours. After hearing her words, everyone looked at her in a daze. Fu Chen and the others were puzzled. Didn't they agree to ask people from the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance to help them auction it? However, they couldn't compare to Lu Muyen's shrewdness, so they would support everything she did. I wonder what young Miss Lu wants to auction. If there is any spiritual item to be auctioned, it can be auctioned off by our Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. You are a high-level distinguished guest, and we will only charge half of the intermediate fee. The manager was very curious about what Lu Muyen wanted to do. Lu Muyen's name had long spread throughout the cities in the competition space. They had also heard a lot about her, and now she had the silver token too, so that's why he was so polite to her. I want to auction the identity jade tablets needed in the semifinals. Lu Muyen replied bluntly. Pu. Sinan couldn't help but spit out his tea, auction identity jade tablets? You sure have ideas. Helian Lai's lips couldn't resist twitching. This woman must be crazy for money. Could it be that extorting the second prince gave her the inspiration to continue extorting others? The manager was stunned for a moment then said in amusement, young Miss Lu, are you sure you want to auction identity jade tablets? This is something used to participate in the competition. I'm sure. Lu Muyen nodded, there's no requirement in the rules of the competition that jade tablets obtained must be from snatching, right? There's no prohibition on buying and selling, so I'm not violating the rules of the competition if I sell them. She bluntly expressed her thoughts. It was better to put such things out in the light. Others had deep creases on their foreheads. Was it really alright for you to take advantage of this loophole and be known by the organizers? That's true. Ultimately, the manager was an elite of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance, and he had no shortage of business acumen. At this moment, he was also a little interested. However, although Lu Muyen dared to do this business, but their Chamber of Commerce couldn't make this sort of money. Don't worry, I'll pay you for the 2-hour rented venue. Seeing that the manager hesitated, she added. If she didn't have the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance to help auction it, she could save a large amount of intermediate fees. In addition, Luoli and the others took the initiative to join in as laborers, so she'd be a fool not to use them. That's why she changed her original intention. There is no need to pay the venue fee. You are our silver token high-level distinguished guest. I can still give you this convenience. The manager replied with a smile without hesitation. Lu Muyen having the silver token meant that her backing was definitely extraordinary, and there were probably some secrets, but he didn't dare investigate. As far as he knew, even strong sword venerable powerhouses on Tianling continent may not even have a bronze token, let alone a special silver token. Since Lu Muyen had this ability, then he naturally wouldn't miss this chance to make good friends with her just because of some petty profits. No matter whether it was useful or not, there was nothing wrong with showing goodwill. Lu Muyen knew his intentions and didn't reject his kindness, then I thanked the manager greatly. I wonder your surname is? This one is Jiang Kong. The smile on the manager's face was more sincere. Lu Muyen's ability to obtain the silver token must mean she had a deep relationship with some, or a certain high-level, executive of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. If she said a few good words about him, then he had hoped to be transferred back to the headquarters. Then I trouble Manager Jiang to arrange it for us now. Lu Muyen smiled. Manager Jiang nodded and ordered a few things to the attendant, then personally took Lu Muyen and the others to the auction venue in the lobby on the first floor. Luoli, Sinan, Helian Lai. It's time for you to all come to use. Lu Muyen's eyes were curved and looked at the three with a big grin. Luoli had a smile in his eyes, and he was very happy to be able to help Lu Muyen. Go ahead and order us. Sinan and Helian Lai glanced at each other, cursing Luoli inwardly. We can help. But there's a condition. Sinan leaned over and smiled affectionately. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow and asked, tell me. Sinan, this fox, wasn't a simple little cat like Luoli, and she guessed that he probably wanted to sell identity jade tablets too. As Lu Muyen expected, Sinan's next sentence was, we also have extra identity jade tablets. How about we borrow little Bowtie's light and auction them together? Helian Lai was also interested by the conditions proposed by Sinan. Lu Muyen must have figured out an exit if she dared to do this. Lu Muyen looked at Sinan and Helian Lai with a smile that wasn't quite a smile and said slowly, sure. When we finish our auction, well, sell yours, but it'll take 1/10 of your auction prices as venue fee and commission fee. The corners of Sinan's lips twitched. Didn't Manager Jiang not charge venue fees? That's what I got with the Silver Ming Alliance token. If you're unreconciled, go to another venue for auction. Lu Muyen rolled her eyes at him, sell or not. There are many people who want to help, we're not lacking you. I'll do it. Helian Lai decisively chose to make the deal. Earning each bit counts. Either way, 1/10 wasn't too high. Nan finally saw the speed at which this woman flipped face. All right. 1/10 it is. It wasn't that he couldn't bear the spiritual stones. He just wanted to tease her to begin with. Then why don't you hurry up and go recruit customers? We only have 2 hours. Lu Muyen turned around and looked at the several people fiercely, as if they were going to be beaten by her if they were any slower. Under Lu Muyen's sharp gaze, Nan and the others ran right out of the auction hall with their tails between their legs and ordered their subordinates to go and spread the news of the auction. In only a bit, the sword masters in the entire central city knew that someone was holding a small auction in the auction hall of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance, and the auction items were actually the identity jade tablets required for the semi-finals to enter the finals. After hearing this news, many sword masters who didn't enter the top 500 with their points, or those who were in the top 500 but hadn't collected all 7 colors of jade tablets, instantly caused a commotion and rushed to the auction hall to see whether this was true or not. In the courtyard of an inn, a black-clothed man with outstanding temperament was playing a game of chess against himself. "Fourth Prince, there's a piece of news you'd definitely be interested in." One of the elite team members hurried in and said. Ji Xian didn't reply immediately, and after dropping the last black chess piece in his hand did he raise his head and ask, "What news?" Lu Muyen and Nan and the others are holding a small auction before the large auction at the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance's hall and is about to start. The man said with great interest. "Holding a small auction? What do they want to do?" Ji Xian took out a silk handkerchief and wiped his hands, auctioning the identity jade tablets needed to enter the finals. The man replied with a smile. Ji Xian raised an eyebrow, then after pondering, he chuckled, "She sure is bold. Is she doing this to provoke the authority of the organizers? Will she be punished?" A person who sat beside Ji Xian asked. The organizers have never stipulated that the trading of identity jade tablets wasn't allowed. It can be considered taking advantage of a loophole, and at most it'll be banned in the future, but she definitely made a profit this time. Ji Xian himself was also a person who liked to calculate, but who knew that Lu Muyen was even more scheming than him. Selling identity jade tablets was only a matter of earning not losing, without even needing to pay the cost price. How did she come up with it using her little brain? Let's join in the fun. Ji Xian stood up and went out, and the others quickly followed. They were also curious about the auctioning of the identity jade tablets. At the same time, Yan Jun and Mo Ling were negotiating a deal in the private room of the Stream Reflection restaurant. Just as they finished, they heard a series of knocks on the door. "What's the matter?" Yan Jun let the person in and asked. "Master, Lu Muyen, together with Nan and the others, are holding a small auction in the hall of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance. Shall we go and have a look?" Lu Muyen cured Yan Jun's illness and they were very grateful for it, so they were a little more concerned about her affairs. Auction? Just what wicked ideas has she come up with this time? Yan Jun's unparalleled face revealed slight interest. Lu Muyen, that woman, really could cause situations wherever she went. Interesting. Mo Ling was also very curious about what Lu Muyen wanted to do this time. She wants to auction off excess identity jade tablets, so she borrowed the auction venue of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance to hold a small auction. Mo Ling said in surprise, "The venues of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance aren't rented out. How did she do it?" "I heard that she has a Ming Alliance token, but I don't know the specifies." The person who reported it scratched his head and said. "What? Ming Alliance token?" Yan Jun was puzzled, then after drinking the spiritual wine in his cup, he suggested, "Mo Ling, let's go take a look." He sure wanted to see what tricks Lu Muyen, that daring woman, was playing. It was the first time he heard that things like the identity jade tablets could also be auctioned. Sure. Mo Ling was also somewhat interested in Lu Muyen. The news that Lu Muyen was going to auction identity jade tablets was widely spread, and in only a moment, many people gathered in the auction hall. Seeing that the time and number of people were about right, Lu Muyen walked up the auction stage with a light smile on her face, her figure elegant and pleasing to the eye. "I believe you have heard the news and know what we are going to auction today." Seeing the fiery eyes of many people below, she said with a smile, "Exactly. What we are auctioning now is the key to entering the finals identity jade tablets." With a beckon of her hand, Nan and Luoli walked out with 2 plates, causing everyone below to be startled. Lu Muyen lifted the red cloth on the tray and the identity jade tablets of 7 different colors lined up on it instantly attracted the attention of those present. "Young Miss Lu, how do you sell these jade tablets?" Someone below asked impatiently. His points ranking had already advanced into the top 500, but unfortunately he was just missing a yellow jade tablet. He was originally rather anxious, wondering how to obtain a yellow jade tablet to keep his place in the finals, and didn't expect that it could be bought with money now, so how could he not be excited? All 7 colors of jade tablets have the same starting price. The auction will start with the purple jade tablets, with the starting price of 10,000 spiritual stones. The highest bidder wins. Lu Muyen then announced the auction price following the person's question. "What? 10,000 spiritual stones? What this is robbing people? Isn't this cheating us? 10,000 spiritual stones, so expensive." As soon as her voice fell, there was a commotion, basically all disagreeing with the price. Even Yan Jun and Ji Xian, who were sitting in the very back row, couldn't help but hold their foreheads. Was she growing the habit of cheating foolish spenders now? She even dared to ask for the starting price of 10,000 spiritual stones for 1 identity jade tablet. But why did they think that the final price of these jade tablets would definitely be unexpected? Lu Muyen didn't stop them immediately, and waited for those below to have discussed a while before casting a look at Si Nan, person who's super gaudy, are you still going to step up or not? When Si Nan received the look in her eyes, he knew there was nothing good to come from it, but since he had something to request of her, and he was also interested in her, he could only toughen his skin and scolded, regardless of shame or not. What are you all arguing about? Are you saying a place for the competition isn't worth 10,000 spiritual stones? Get out if you don't want to buy it. Si Nan's voice carried the pressure of a sword sovereign. Although he had a suave smile on his face, but there was a coldness in his eyes which made those below instantly go quiet. He was very satisfied with this effect and continued, I believe that some people have already advanced into the top 500 but haven't yet collected all 7 colors of jade tablets. There are only 2 days until the finals. It would be a pity to be eliminated like this. Yeah. The person who spoke before couldn't resist but say in cooperation. So 10,000 spiritual stones for each identity jade tablet really isn't expensive. 10,000 spiritual stones can buy you entry into the finals. Where can you find such a deal? After listening to Si Nan's words, those who had already advanced into the top 500 but had not collected all 7 colors of jade tablets were all moved. Spiritual stones could be found again, but if one missed this chance to enter the finals, one would regret it for the rest of their lives. Give me one. The big man who had spoken the entire time shouted again. Lu Muyan's long eyelashes concealed the look in her eyes and smiled lightly, let the first jade token be considered an auspicious start, so it won't be auctioned. 10,000 spiritual stones sold directly to this friend. I wonder which colored jade tablet you want. Then she looked at the big man and asked. The big man started at the jade tablet on the trays excitedly, I want the yellow one. Lu Muyen nodded with a smile and gave Si Nan a look. Si Nan comprehended and handed the yellow jade tablet on the tray to the big man, you've got good eyes. There aren't many yellow jade tablets, and you definitely won't be able to buy them at this price later. The big man took out a bag of spiritual stones to exchange and said with an honest smile, as long as I can enter the finals, no matter how expensive it is, it'll be worth it. Well said. Si Nan gave the big man a look as if saying you have good insight. With the success of the big man's transaction, many people on the sidelines also became restless. Lu Muyen took advantage of the situation to start the auction. The purple jade tablets were auctioned first, and the last were the red jade tablets. The auction atmosphere wasn't that active at the beginning, but the price of each jade tablet all exceeded 10,000 spiritual stones. When there weren't many jade tablets left, many became impatient, and the prices increased by many folds. Especially when the red jade tablets were being auctioned, the situation could be described as overwhelming. Although the red jade tablets represented the identity of a small kingdom sword master, but it was also the jade tablet with the least amount in the semifinals. There were very few small kingdom sword masters participating in semifinals. There were many people but not a lot of porridge, so many didn't have this color of jade tablets. In the end, the red jade tablets were increased to a minimum of 30,000 spiritual stones, and the highest was 50,000 spiritual stones each. The face of the second prince who finally won a red jade token at the price of 40,000 couldn't be any darker. He finally found out that the woman really wasn't selling it to him at a black price before, and he regretted that when Lu Muyen asked him if he wanted a red jade tablet for 10,000 spiritual stones or not, why he had a brain spasm and refused. Now his heart was bleeding. He just spent an extra 30,000 more spiritual stones and he really wanted to give himself a few slaps on the cheek. The auction of jade tablets was better than expected. Lu Muyen was in a good mood, and she let Si Nan and the others auction their own. After the auction, many people regretfully asked if there were still any more jade tablets left. They were all driven crazy by the auction atmosphere earlier, and it were as if it didn't matter how many spiritual stones they spent, it was all very profitable. On the top floor of the auction hall were the organizers of this continental tournament for hegemony. The organizer of this small auction is Lu Muyen, who's been restless since she entered the competition space. One of them, a black-clothed elderly man, asked with an indifferent expression. A black-clothed middle-aged man behind him replied, reporting to master, she is precisely Lu Muyen. Interesting. The black-clothed elderly man revealed a rare, slight smile. An older woman whose charm still remained sitting beside him revealed an expression of slight displeasure, she even dares to auction identity jade tablets. She sure is courageous. I suggest disqualifying her from the competition. She didn't like women who were in the limelight, and Lu Muyen's way of doing things obviously displeased her. A cyan-clothed elderly man opposite her stroked his long beard and said, us organizers has not stipulated that the auction of identity jade tablets is not allowed. If we disqualify her from the competition because of this, it would be unreasonable. This little girl has the courage to think and act, I sure think it isn't bad. Disqualification from the competition is too serious a consequence. Consequence. A rather enchanting and charming woman had a hint of admiration in her eyes. She is provoking the authority of us organizers. If everyone learns from this and does the same, wouldn't it break the rules of the competitions? The older-aged woman whose charm still remained said with furrowed brows. The black-clothed elderly man glanced coldly at the woman and said slowly, this kind of competition should break the norms to begin with. She did a good job. This little girl's behavior was very appealing to him, and he sure could pay more attention to her in the future. Then he instructed the middle-aged man behind him, send a complete copy of Lu Muyen's information to me. Yes, master. The black-clothed elderly man stood up indifferently, ignored everyone and walked directly out the door. Others didn't dare express their dissatisfaction. This person wasn't someone they could offend. The woman didn't mention disqualifying Lu Muyen from the competitor list because of the words of the black-clothed elderly man, but she was still very displeased with Lu Muyen inwardly. In the castle in the central area, the elders of the 6 major sects also received the news of the auction and of the organizers immediately. This Lu Muyen sure has so many ideas. She even dared to put identity jade tablets on auction. I don't know whether I should say she's courageous and intelligent, or that she's young and impulsive. The elder of the Spirit Tamers sect said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, old Mo didn't follow the advice of that spiritual wine master of the Stream Reflection restaurant to remove her from the list, otherwise it would be a huge loss. Although they didn't agree much with Lu Muyan's approach, but they still appreciated it. Although Li Yuyun is one of the judges of the organizers, representing the Stream Reflection restaurant, but the real power of this competition is still in the hands of old Mo of the Smithing Pavilion. Even if she isn't reconciled, she still needs to swallow this. The elder of the medicine sect obviously didn't quite like the woman who spoke and wanted to revoke Lu Muyan's place. The strong and sturdy elder of the 8 extreme sect snorted coldly. An old woman who can't find a man to marry just likes to point fingers. Seeing that the little girl is young, beautiful, and capable, she becomes jealous. If Lu Muyen was really disqualified because of her words, he would definitely go smash the signboard of the Stream Reflection restaurant on behalf of the 8 extreme sect. It wasn't easy for him to finally find a good seedling that's hard to find in 100 years for his sect, alright? The others nodded in agreement. She is indeed stretching her hands a little too long. Lu Muyen was the dark horse that their 6 major sects valued. If she was really disqualified from participating in the finals by Li Yuyun, then wouldn't they all be irritated to death? There was a cold light in the eyes of the otherworldly, handsome, white-clothed man sitting behind the few people. A mere elder of the Stream Reflection restaurant dares to be so presumptuous. Should he remove her himself or wait for his woman to slap her in the face herself? Lu Muyan's small auction took only just over an hour to auction off the excess jade tablets on her. Her ranking also dropped from 2nd to 8th. She happily swept the spiritual stones in her interspatial ring with her mental energy. This time, more than 400,000 spiritual stones worth of identity jade tablets were auctioned off. This was an exceptionally beneficial business, but a pity it wouldn't last. Yi Qinghan and the others also had smiles all over their faces. Each of them had harvested more than 100,000 spiritual stones each. It seemed that they could buy 1 or 2 items at this auction now. Fu Chen couldn't believe it when he was holding the spiritual stones. He smiled excitedly at Lu Muyen and said, Muyen, we can eat all the tasty food and strong drinks out there by following you. That's right, just look at who elder sister here is. Lu Muyen's smile, looking tsundere. Pfft. Little beauty, who are you the elder sister of? Why don't you call me elder brother? The amount of spiritual stones Si Nan obtained was also a lot, and he approached Lu Muyen to joke around as he was in a good mood. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow and asked with a sinister smile, what are the benefits of calling you elder brother? Si Nan shuddered when he heard Lu Muyen's sinister tone. Haha, I'm just joking. If he really asked this woman to call him elder brother, then he was afraid he'd lose a layer of skin. Lu Muyen narrowed her eyes at him, then retracted her gaze. Seeing that some people in the auction hall had followed suit and also started selling identity jade tablets, she didn't say anything. If she wanted to eat meat, then she should let others drink some soup at least, so as not to become the target of public criticism. After a little, the auction of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance officially began. Because the auction was held in the competition space, so all the sword masters participating sat in the hall without discrimination and there weren't any separate private rooms. Lu Muyen was the holder of the silver token, so she was arranged by manager Jiang to sit in the front 3 rows, and the sword masters from elite teams from superpower kingdoms also sat in the front 10 rows. Ji Xian and Yan Jun happened to be sitting behind her. The two obviously knew each other and they chatted while sitting together. Lu Muyen leaned back on the chair languidly, listening into the conversation between the two from time to time and obtained some news from it. For example, in today's auction, although the major forces didn't send people to participate, but there were many participating sword masters with clan missions and the competition would be very fierce. Lu Muyen, you made a lot of money this time, didn't you? Yan Jun's amorous eyes were filled with a smile, and he reached out to pat her shoulder. Lu Muyen turned her head, nodded, and said with a smile, indeed earned a lot, but no matter how much I earn, you'll never forget the 50,000 spiritual stones you owe me. Yan Jun's lips twitched. This woman sure was obsessed with money. Yan Jun owes you 50,000 spiritual stones? Ji Xian asked in surprise. Lu Muyen glanced at him, so what? I'm just a little curious about how he ended up owing you 50,000 spiritual stones. Ji Xian's handsome face revealed a bit of playfulness. Is it like the second prince? You think that's possible? Yan Jun's face darkened. He wasn't a waste like that second prince. Then why do you owe her spiritual stones? Ji Xian asked persistently. A tigress. She cured my illness. Lu Muyen was decisively interrupted by Yan Jun before she could continue speaking. Lu Muyen chuckled softly, and she felt much better when she saw the ugly look on Yan Jun's face. What tigress? Ji Xian could see at a glance that Yan Jun's expression wasn't good and there was something hidden behind what Lu Muyen said. Lu Muyen looked askance at him, blinked, and said, you want to know? I want to know. Ji Xian nodded. The news fee is 20,000 spiritual stones. Lu Muyen looked as if she was like a little fox saying, you got a bargain. You really can only think about money. Ji Xian looked at her with amusement and didn't ask any more questions. It wasn't worth 20,000 spiritual stones to hear Yan Jun's embarrassments. Yan Jun glared at Lu Mu Yan. You, woman, really became addicted to robbery, didn't you? She actually wanted to sell the most humiliating news in his life to Ji Xian. She's truly abominable. If Ji Xian, this kid, knew that he was almost forced by a demonic beast, wouldn't he laugh at him for the rest of his life? How did you know? Lu Mu Yan blinked. She just said that to Ji Xian so that he would retreat. She wouldn't reveal what happened that day. After all, it was a very disgraceful event for Yan Jun. Yan Jun smiled helplessly. He simply couldn't match this woman's glib tongue. By the way, you just said that she cured your illness. Ji Xian elbowed Yan Jun's arm, raised an eyebrow and asked, is it possibly? Yes. Yan Jun's heart disease had been cured and there was no more fear that he must not speak of it. Ji Xian was slightly surprised. It seemed that he still had underestimated Lu Mu Yan before. Guqin, very old 7-stringed instrument. Can be translated to zither. A melodious and brisk Guqin sound came from ahead, and the auction hall, which was originally noisy, instantly became quiet. After the sound of the Guqin fell, a stunning young woman with a delicate and beautiful appearance and an exquisite figure stepped onto the front stage, causing the eyes of many men to follow her continuously. Beauty. Si Nan looked at the stage with great interest, saying so, but his eyes were very clear. Lu Mu Yan saw that the woman on stage was wearing a long rose-red dress, had an excellent figure and her appearance was comparable to that of Mu Ning, but she had a few more mature feminine charms. Not only is she a beauty, she's also a stunner. Lu Mu Yan's eyes were filled with admiration. She didn't know why, but she didn't feel disgusted by this woman, but instead, had a faint liking for her. The corners of the several people's lips twitched when they heard her praise. It was the first time they've heard a woman commenting another woman as a stunner. Helian Lai smiled with frivolity and asked, wow, women also appreciate each other. Why can't we women appreciate each other? The woman on the stage is indeed very attractive. Lu Mu Yan rolled her eyes at him. They didn't deny her words. The woman above was indeed a stunner, but they were more interested in Lu Mu Yan. Greetings everyone. My name is Leng Yi and am the auctioneer of this Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance auction. Leng Yi's voice was tender and soft, but it didn't make people feel pretentious. This woman's voice is also quite nice. Helian Lai said with a smile. Si Nan chuckled and asked, have you bones softened? Helian Lai's face darkened and he glanced at Lu Mu Yan in his peripheral vision. Only after seeing that she didn't have any reaction did he turn to glare at Si Nan. Do you think him as lustful as you? This young master likes beautiful women. That's nothing to be ashamed about. How can you say it's lust? Si Nan shook his fan with a frivolous look. Luo Li furrowed his brows and said, enough from you two perverts, the auction has started. The two of them turned their heads away and cursed inwardly. Luo Li is such a hypocrite. Lu Mu Yan knew that they were joking around and ignored it, turning her attention to the beauty on the stage. I believe everyone already knows the rules of the auction. I won't say much here. Leng Yi snapped her fingers and a beautiful woman in yellow came up on stage, holding a tray. This is a sword skill of Earth rank, acquired by a sword saint powerhouse in the land of inheritance. It is suitable for ice attribute sword masters and there are 10 sets of sword techniques. Each set is very powerful, and there is also a set of a nameless sword realm in this sword skill. If one can comprehend it, then your future achievements will definitely be extraordinary. Tossing aside everything else, I believe everyone knows the value of sword skills from the land of inheritance. After introducing the sword skills, Leng Yi continued, as the first auction item, our Chamber of Commerce will set its starting price at 1 low-quality spiritual stone. The auction begins now. Hearing Leng Yi's words, most of the sword masters below were fiery with desire now. It's actually from the land of inheritance. That senior sword saint sure is lucky. Earth rank sword skills are rare to begin with, and there are even fewer ones that contain sword realms. Who would have expected that we'd meet one at this auction? Things that come out of the land of inheritance are all good things. Even if they're a mortal rank 2 sword skill. Although the starting price of this earth rank sword skill is 1 spiritual stone, but it's difficult to win without strong capital. That's true. A copy of this kind of sword skill can fetch sky-high prices outside. I wonder how much it'll go for today. The discussions below rose one after another, all revolving around the land of inheritance and the sword skill. Lu Mu Yan was puzzled and looked at Si Nan beside her, asking, what sort of place is the land of inheritance? Hearing her question, Si Nan and the others were completely speechless. This woman was usually so shrewd and capable, but she actually didn't even know about the land of inheritance. Ji Xian always thought that Lu Mu Yan's origin might not be as simple as it seemed, but when he heard her question, he couldn't help but hold his forehead. He could now be sure that Lu Mu Yan, this cunning, sly woman, really came from a small kingdom like that Yenzhou, otherwise it was impossible for her to not even know the land of inheritance. One don't actually know how author described the woman because it was censored. Lu Mu Yan had already read the files in the Imperial Library before coming to the competition space, but it hardly mentioned anything about the secrets of the continent. Yenzhou Kingdom may be considered a medium-sized kingdom compared to its surrounding areas, but compared to the participating kingdoms in the competition space, it was like the difference between a large rock and a speck of gravel. Any few sword venerable elders from any superpower kingdom could destroy Lu Mu Yan's kingdom easily, which made her sense of danger stronger and stronger. In order to keep the Lu clan standing, she must continue to become stronger. Even the Lu clan needs to be transformed into an iron wall so that people couldn't take advantage of it. The Land of Inheritance is a very mysterious place. It's opened once every 100 years by the 6 major sects and several top forces in the continent jointly opening up a channel for the pupils to enter. Si Nan introduced. Lu Muyen thought a bit and asked, is it a fixed time every 100 years? Do they open a passage just for the pupils to enter? When Si Nan and the others heard her questions, they all subconsciously felt a sense of appreciation in their hearts. She really had a clever mind and could take the initiative to grasp the key details in a simple introduction. The opening time of the Land of Inheritance is actually not fixed. It's just that every 100 years, there will be a period when the restriction outside is at its weakest. The 6 major sects and several top forces use that time to open up channels. And only allowing pupils to enter is because there's no other way. The inheritance space can only accommodate sword masters who have a cultivation base below Sword Saint. If a Sword Saint powerhouse or above entered the Land of Inheritance, they would be killed by a space storm that suddenly appears or would be spontaneously teleported out. Si Nan continued. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow. Didn't the auctioneer just say that the Earth rank sword skill was found in the inheritance space by a Sword Saint powerhouse? Why can he enter? That was 200 years ago. After the last opening of the Land of Inheritance, Sword Saint cultivation base powerhouses were unable to set foot in there. It said that the endurance of that space has reached its limit and is on the verge of collapse. Yen Jun interjected, if a Sword Saint powerhouse forcibly enters and fights in the space, then it will cause the space to be destroyed and collapse instantly. The Land of Inheritance may never be opened again in the future, so the 6 major sects and several top forces don't dare take that risk, and are also reluctant to sacrifice Sword Saint powerhouses. What good things are in the Land of Inheritance? Is it a secret realm? Lu Muyen was obviously more interested in what was inside. Ji Xian smiled, the most attractive thing about the Land of Inheritance is the inheritance. It said that the space began to develop in the ancient times. After every high-level Sword Saint and Sword Deity level powerhouses die, as long as their consciousness condenses a will, they will leave an inheritance hall in the inheritance space, and use a wisp of their divine soul to preserve their lives skills or special techniques to pass on to those who are destined. There are also Sword Saints or Sword Deity level powerhouses who will choose to go to the inheritance space to build an inheritance hall when they have no hope of breaking through. There are manuals and magic tools from their entire lives placed in there, just for someone to find it and continue their legacy. Luo Yi added. So that's how it is. Lu Muyan's eyes were filled with interest. She might have to go and take a look when she had the chance. While the several people were discussing, the auction was also proceeding fiercely, and the Earth rank cultivation method was already up to 20,000 spiritual stones. You don't want to bid? Lu Muyen asked Si Nan and the others. If she remembered correctly, Si Nan and Ji Xian both cultivated the ice attribute elemental law. There are some flaws in this Earth rank method. Those who know generally won't bid for it. Si Nan whispered. Lu Muyen looked at him and asked curiously, how do you know? What flaw? This manual was auctioned once, more than a decade ago. It was won by a genius sword sovereign, but because the will in the sword skill has the disadvantage of devouring mental energy, the possibility of that sword sovereign advancing to sword venerable was destroyed. Si Nan said with slight pity. Observing the people around them who were bidding, one could see that there wasn't a single sword master from a superpower kingdom. Although this was a secret matter, but there were still many people who knew it. After all, things that came from the Land of Inheritance were rare. They were not unmoved, but they didn't dare to gamble their future on a sword skill. Lu Muyen observed her surroundings and also found the problem. There was interest in her eyes. The will of the sword skill that could devour mental energy? Interesting. This sword master has bid 20,000 spiritual stones, is there anyone else who will bid higher? Leng Yi scanned the people who sat below and said with a smile, I will count to 3. If no one bids, then this sword skill will belong to this friend. 1, 2. When Leng Yi was about to call 3, a lazy and clear female voice suddenly sounded. 30,000 spiritual stones. Si Nan and Ji Xian looked at Lu Muyen as if they didn't know her, are you crazy? Lu Muyen, Si Nan just told you about the flaw of that sword skill. 30,000 spiritual stones isn't worth it. Luo Li didn't expect Lu Muyen to bid even when she knew that the sword skill had a problem, so he persuaded. Lu Muyen's eyebrows were beautiful and there was an unrestrained smile on her face, no worries, I've got a lot of money, and if I don't use it, it'll feel uneasy. The several people rolled their eyes inwardly. What sort of reason was that? 40,000. Obviously, the previous sword master was also very interested in this sword skill. Lu Muyen ignored the gaze of the several people who wanted to stop her and continued to bid, 50,000. The sword master revealed a bit of displeasure, then finally sighed and stopped bidding. 50,000 already exceeded his expectations. Lu Muyen, if you've really got too much money that you feel uneasy, we can help you use it. Using it to buy this flawed manual, be careful not to lose your army on top of losing your wife. Si Nan couldn't resist but say. This woman was really not a normal person, knowing that there were tigers in the mountains, yet still walking towards the mountains with tigers. Can't I buy it to be a desk pad? Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow, with an expression as if saying Laonyang has money with nowhere so spend, so I'm happy to buy. Si Nan took a deep breath and turned his head to the side, otherwise he was afraid that he couldn't resist strangling her to death. Lu Muyen was a woman that made people both love and hate, and no one could compare to how she angered people. Ji Xian and the others couldn't help twitching their lips when they saw her expression as if saying I've got money that was looking for a beating. They want bother with her. She couldn't be looked at with gazes when looking at a normal person. In the end, Lu Mu Yen won the Earth rank sword skill at the price of 50,000 spiritual stones, which made many sword masters pay more attention to her. Lu Mu Yen, after you get the sword skill, don't research too deeply into it. I've heard that this sword skill is very insidious, and has already rotated through many owners. Luo Yi knew that Lu Mu Yen would never do things without reason. He naturally wouldn't believe the excuse she said about having too much money and feeling uneasy about it, but he still couldn't resist but remind her. With such excellent, heaven-defying talent, it would really be a pity if she was really compromised by this skill. Thank you for your caution, I understand. Lu Mu Yen replied with a smile. It was precisely because this sword skill had flaws and was insidious that she bid for it, otherwise why would she spend 50,000 spiritual stones to bid for an Earth rank sword skill? Of course, it was naturally impossible for her to announce her ideas to the others. After all, she hadn't even studied this insidious sword skill yet. She won the sword skill purely out of interest and curiosity. You are an unreasonable woman. Luo Li glared at her. Lu Mu Yen smiled and said in a way that made her look as if she was seeking a beating, what can I do, I've got a lot of money. The several people gritted their teeth, but also had to admit that Lu Mu Yen was indeed the person with the most spiritual stones among them. After the first auction item was won by Lu Mu Yen, Leng Yi continued to auction the second item. The second question item is a bottle of grade 3 pills. Item after item were auctioned off by Leng Yi. Yan Jun and the others all got what they wanted, and even Yi Qing Han, Yun Zmo, and the others obtained a few good magic tools and spiritual items. Towards the end, Lu Mu Yen only bid for and won a few spiritual herbs and spiritual items besides the manual. Lu Mu Yen, don't you want to bid for this defense-type magic tool? Luo Li turned to Lu Mu Yen to ask when he heard Leng Yi introduce a defensive shield refined by a grade 4 smith. Lu Mu Yen glanced at the shield. Middle-quality saint tool, made from the bones and skin of peak phase tier 6 demonic beasts. The refining method was relatively skilled, but unfortunately, it didn't enter her eyes. Not interested. Si Nan leaned over and said, you only have the golden sword attack type magic tool, you indeed need a defense type magic tool. The shield above is the best defense type magic tool in this auction. You really want to think about it? Can the above shield withstand the full force bombardment of advanced phase sword sovereigns? Lu Mu Yen asked instead. If they attack with all their strength a dozen or so times, it can probably not withstand it. Si Nan thought a little then replied. Lu Mu Yen raised an eyebrow, then is there a reason I need to buy it? Do you really think I'm a fool who has more money than I can spend? She could now fight against sword masters at Sword Sovereign Cultivation base, so this shield was only a burden to her. The corner of Si Nan's lips twitched. It couldn't withstand the full force bombardment of an advanced phase sword sovereign, but it could still resist initial and middle phase sword sovereign attacks. It was still useful in combat. But remembering Lu Mu Yan's strong and abnormally monstrous combat power, he instantly silenced himself. Ji Xian and the others felt speechless when they heard her words. Comparing the Earth rank sword skill to this shield was obviously more practical. She was indeed not a fool, she was a lunatic. When the auction came to an end, Leng Yi smiled softly and said, all the items prepared for this auction have been sold. Now the finale will be auctioned. I believe it won't disappoint everyone. Young Miss Leng, don't keep us guessing, take out the finale item and let's have a look. The sword masters below shouted impatiently. After he finished speaking, everyone else agreed. The finale item of each auction of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance were all very rare and valuable items, so they were naturally the most sought-after items. Of course the price must also be ridiculously high. Since everyone is so impatient, then I won't continue to keep you guessing. Leng Yi smiled and clapped her hands. A white-robed man walked onto the stage, and with a flip of his palm, a black boat the size of a palm appeared. It's actually a flying-type magic tool. Someone in the audience exclaimed. Other people's eyes were also very fierce as they stared at the boat in the man's hand. Light boat, typical appearance of a light boat. This is a flying-type magic tool that the Grade 5 Smith, Great Master Wu, spent 10 years refining the Sumeru 1 light boat. Great Master Wu, it's actually a magic tool refined by Great Master Wu. Yeah. Great Master Wu has been famous on Tianling continent for more than 200 years, and he hasn't auctioned magic tools for decades, but we actually encountered one this time. Only when Leng Yi saw that the people below were all excited, did she continue to speak slowly. The Sumeru light boat has the speed of a tier 7 flying demonic beast and has a defensive function, comparable to a top-quality defense-type saint tool. And there is the most important feature of the Sumeru light boat, and that is that it can change its size freely. The smallest form is only the size of a palm. A sword master can also shrink it to this limit while sitting on this light boat. It's an excellent choice for exploring secret realms or going out without attracting others' attention. A flying-type magic tool the size of a palm is a very small target, and it also has a defense function of a high-quality saint tool. Such a magic tool has not appeared in at least 100 years. Everyone must seize this opportunity. Leng Yi's words sounded very truthful, but they also easily incited people's enthusiasm and had hidden meanings. Many people below were moved. Young Miss Leng, how many people can this Sumeru light boat carry? A sword master from a large kingdom below asked. It can carry up to 3,000 people. Leng Yi predicted that someone would ask questions below, so she didn't introduce everything at the beginning. It would be more engaging questioning and answering like this. Since it can seat so many people, if there is an emergency in the clan, it can also be used to escape. A sword master behind him muttered. His words were also what other sword masters thought. It having the flying speed of a tier 7 demonic beast meant that it was even faster than that of a human sword venerable flying on swords. If one's clan encountered any major disaster, using this defensive light boat to escape was also a trump card. Lu Muyan's mental energy stretched forward and swept over the Sumeru light boat, then an arc rose on her lips. This flying-type defense magic tool was indeed a fine product. If she found several rare spars in the future to re-refine it, its grade could be improved again. Defensive flying-type magic tools were more practical than flying demonic beasts. After all, they could carry a lot more people, so it wasn't bad to win it and use it as an escape trump card for the Lu clan. She rubbed her chin and thought about it. Then, she could even refine a few puppet mechanisms to install on the light boat. After making it attack, defend, and fly, she believed that even if the Lu clan was attacked by a sword venerable level powerhouse, they could transfer the clan members to escape safely. Young Miss Leng, can you use this Sumeru light boat in battle? One of them asked. Many flying-type magic tools were good and easy to use, but the moment they met a battle, they would be unable to be activated. Plus, because they're expensive, many sword masters preferred to choose flying-type spirit pets. The Sumeru light boat can 100% be activated for battle. You can all rest assured and try it as much as you want after you win it. Leng Yi's stunning and gorgeous face had a firm look. If it can't be activated, then our Chamber of Commerce will not only refund the full amount, but also double the compensation. Gasp. Hearing her promise, many people couldn't resist drawing a deep breath. To have the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance make such a promise proved that the Sumeru light boat was definitely as Leng Yi said, otherwise who would be stupid enough to pay double. It had a large load capacity, could change its size, and had the attributes of a defensive top-quality saint tool. It was indeed worthy of being the finale item of the auction. No one present was unmoved by such a flying-type magic tool. Young Miss Lu, may I take the liberty of asking, since this Sumeru light boat is so good, why would it be auctioned in this competition space? A sword master from a superpower kingdom asked rationally. If such a thing was taken out of the competition space to auction, it was definitely an item that numerous kingdoms or distinguished clans would vie for. They, elite pupils of their clans participating in the competition space, simply couldn't compare to the financial resources of their entire clan. Even if one came with a clan mission, the spiritual stones brought were still limited. The question he asked was also the suspicion in the hearts of many people. Could it be that this Sumeru light boat had a huge drawback too? A good question from this friend. Leng Yi smiled gracefully, radiating youthfulness. This is also something I was prepared to speak about. One Sumeru is a name of a mountain, I believe. I didn't know how to translate and was just going to leave it as Shuni, but there just so happened to be a mountain named that, so I used that translation. Everyone present calmed down and looked at Leng Yi on the stage, waiting for her answer. Leng Yi smiled gracefully and said, Senior Wu participated in the Tianling Continent Tournament of Hegemony 200 years ago. Although he didn't advance into the top 100 at the time, but he obtained a fortuitous opportunity in the competition space that allowed him to become a smith, and he also met his beloved wife in that competition. This time, he spent 10 years refining the Sumeru light boat to commemorate the opportunity of that year, and to auction the light boat here to encourage everyone. Leng Yi continued, of course, if Great Master Wu can refine one Sumeru light boat, then he can refine the second, so you all don't need to be too concerned. Leng Yi's meaning was obvious. Great Master Wu made the first Sumeru light boat to commemorate the fortuitous opportunity of that year, and his 10 years of hard work had not been in vain. It was most likely that when he made the second flying-type magic tool, he would be more familiar with the process. So that's how it is. I have long heard that Great Master Wu had met that talented female cultivator in the competition space who became his beloved companion, and as such, their story became a fine tale that spread far and wide. It seems that the chance encounter in the competition space wasn't small, otherwise it would have been impossible for him to become the current grade 5 smith he is. Many people appeared as if they were given a stimulant. Great Master Wu being able to meet a fortuitous opportunity that made him turn from an inconspicuous person from a small medium kingdom into a grade 5 smith who was now famous across the mainland meant that they may also be able to encounter a large opportunity. In such a way, we, sword masters who participated this time, are sharing a bit of his light. I heard that Great Master's hobbies are all rather strange, so it's understandable if Great Master Wu wants to commemorate that fortuitous encounter. Lu Muyan recognized that Leng Yi's frank expression didn't seem to be fake, but she just had a constant feeling that the reason for the Great Master's auction was a little far-fetched. If that's the case, then Miss Leng, quickly auction it. The people below all believed in this reason and shouted excitedly for Leng Yi to quickly auction it. Since everyone is so impatient, then I won't say any more. Leng Yi said with a smile, the starting price of this Sumeru light boat is 20,000 spiritual stones, and the price must not increase lower than 1,000 spiritual stones each time. The auction will now start. 25,000 spiritual stones. As soon as she finished speaking, someone began to bid. 30,000 spiritual stones. 50,000 spiritual stones. Very soon, the price was called to 100,000 spiritual stones. It seemed that the elite pupils of those large kingdoms were all prepared and rich. 120,000. Luo Ye's clear voice came out slowly. Yan Jun also wanted to bid for it, but unfortunately, he didn't have enough spiritual stones, so he had to give up. Although Ji Xian was valued in the empire, but he was always suppressed by that Ji Yu mother and son pair, so in the resources he obtained, he had limited spiritual stones. He didn't have any hope for the Sumeru light boat. Ji was swallowed by the evil Jiao, and the interspatial ring was also swallowed together. Everyone thought that the ring was still in the evil Jiao's belly, but no one knew that Mo Yen had devoured that evil Jiao and the ring had already landed in Lu Muyan's hands. Therefore, Lu Muyan was actually rolling in money right now. 130,000. Si Nan shouted slovenly. Although Hellion Lai's empire wasn't as good as the two of theirs, but he came with the resources of the imperial family and also desired the Sumer light boat. 140,000. 160,000. An elite pupil of a superpower kingdom shouted. 180,000. Luo Yi continued to follow. 200,000. Hellion Lai gritted his teeth. Si Nan narrowed his eyes and shouted his baseline price, 220,000. 230,000. Luo Yi continued. 250,000. The man was obviously very confident. 260,000. Luo Yi hadn't reached his bottom price yet. The man snorted coldly and shouted, 300,000. 300,000 already exceeded Luo Yi's bottom price, and the empire's resources he brought were exactly this number. Although he had long guessed that the Sumer light boat wouldn't be so easy to obtain, but he didn't expect it to be so high. Of course, if this flying-type magic tool was auctioned outside, the price would definitely not be lower than 500,000 low-quality spiritual stones. The price of 300,000 caused an uproar among the sword masters. This was a huge amount of money. Everyone thought that the person who made the final bid would definitely win, and even the sword master himself thought so, just waiting for Leng Yi to announce the result, but who knew that he would hear a lazy and sweet voice. 310,000. Everyone followed the voice to find that the person who made the bid was a peerless, purple-clothed woman, and many recognized that she was the one who auctioned the identity jade tablets before. This woman probably made a lot from auctioning identity jade tablets before. Someone muttered bitterly. There were also people who were slightly afraid of Lu Muyan. She can use the venue of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance to hold a small auction. This means that her background shouldn't be average. It's better to not provoke her. This one is the Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom. This Sumer light boat is very important to me, so I hope Miss Lu can yield. There was a haze in the eyes of the man who bid before. His words made Luo Li and the others furrow their brows. Was he trying to threaten Lu Muyan? Apologies. I also like this Sumer light boat. The one with the highest price will obtain it. You can bid as you please. If it can be higher than me, then this flying magic tool will naturally belong to you. Lu Muyan hooked her lips, and what she said was arrogant and unrestrained. Using Nanshuan Kingdom to oppress her? What's that about? The expression of the Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom darkened. This woman truly failed to appreciate one's kindness. How dare a person from a small kingdom be so arrogant? So what if she's the dark horse? Wasn't she just relying on the fact that she knew Luo Li and Si Nan to fight him? He really didn't believe that if he and her were to actually fight, that Luo Li, Si Nan, and the others would form a bad relationship with him just because of Lu Muyan. 330,000. He cursed Lu Muyan inwardly. It could have been one using 300,000 originally, yet who knew that an accident would occur? It would be an unhappy occurrence for anyone. It was just that he completely forgot that this was an auction, and the one with the highest price would win. That was the truth. Lu Muyan glanced at him casually, then shouted leisurely, 350,000. Young Miss Lu, are you certain that you want to spend so much money buying a flying-type magic tool? The Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom added with a bit of sharp, murderous intent, and even more threats. Lu Muyan hated people who used their family background to oppress her the most. Her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and she said lazily, I've got a lot of money and want to find a place to spend it. What can you do about it? Her answer made everyone present twitch their lips. So it turned out that she bid because she had a lot of money and nowhere to use it. She was truly arrogant and exasperating. The Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. He only had 360,000 spiritual stones on him, and it was all gathered from his teammates. This woman truly was too presumptuous. 360,000. Calling out his bottom price, he looked at Lu Muyan with deep, threatening cold eyes. Lu Muyan smiled sweetly, beautiful and moving. She blinked at the Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom and said, 361,000 spiritual stones. You, the Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom, couldn't help but stand and point at her, but he didn't know how to curse her. This woman must have done it on purpose. How did she know that he only had 360,000 spiritual stones on him? Although I have a lot of money, but I can't waste it. Lu Muyan chuckled lightly, then raised her eyes and said to the Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom with a smile, Your Highness the Crown Prince, you can ignore me and continue to bid. Laonyang precisely wants to frustrate you to death. Anyone who dared threaten her all went to hell. As long as she wanted to win this Sumer light boat, then the Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom would definitely hold a grudge. Since they were going to forge a feud anyways, then it didn't matter if she angered the other party a little more. The killing intent in the other party's eyes wasn't concealed at all, and the more he was like this, the more she wanted to poke the other's sore spot. Moreover, this flying-type magic tool was a way of escape for the Lu clan if they ever met danger, so she naturally wouldn't yield. Want to buy the Sumer light boat? Well, then she'd definitely snatch it. The Crown Prince of Nanshuan Kingdom was choked by Lu Muyan and couldn't say a word, annoyed and frustrated to death. He took a deep breath and sat back in his seat, afraid that he wouldn't be able to resist strangling that woman that smiled like a flower. Your Royal Highness the Crown Prince, continue. Lu Muyen saw the other party's expression turn grim and she smiled even more cheerfully. There was even an expression of wanting this to continue on her face. Seeing this, the others couldn't bear to look directly at her. Why did they feel that this stunning woman really needed a beating? This was blatant showing off. Having money sure made one arrogant. The anger that the crown prince of Nanshuan kingdom had just suppressed soared again. He snorted coldly with a dark expression, "I'll let you. But you don't have to let me." Lu Muyen blinked innocently. The crown prince of Nanshuan glared at her fiercely, then turned to Leng Yi on the stage and said, "Young Miss Leng, let's continue the auction." He also wanted to continue to bid. But it was a pity that he was suppressed by Lu Muyen. If he still had more spiritual stones, he would definitely smash them on the floor and blind Lu Muyen. Leng Yi glanced at the crown prince of Nanshuan meaningfully with her usual smile on her beautiful face, while there was a small, genuine smile seeping from her eyes. That woman named Lu Muyen sure was interesting. This young miss has bid 361,000 spiritual stones. Is there anyone who will bid higher? After waiting for a while, no one bid any more, and Leng Yi said with a smile, "I will count from 3. If no one bids, the summer light boat will belong to this young miss. 3, 2, 1. Congratulations to this young miss for winning the finale item of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance auction." Leng Yi said a few more emotional words and ended the auction. When she left, she glanced at Lu Muyen with great interest. Lu Muyen's eyes met hers for a few breaths of time, and an arc rose on her lips. After the auction, the crown prince of Nanshuan kingdom walked in front of Lu Muyen with a grim and sinister smile on his face. "Lu Muyen, I hope you can enter the finals alive." Pfft. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow and said with a smile, "Gee, you once said the same to me, but this young miss is still alive and well, yet he has already reported to the palace of King Yama. Just you wait." The crown prince of Nanshuan kingdom naturally knew that Ji Yu led people to besiege and kill Lu Muyen, but was instead backlashed by the talisman. That person's death was indeed inseparable from this woman. Lu Muyen revealed a look as if she were looking at an idiot. "I'll accompany you to the end." There were countless people who wanted her to die, and there were also many people who had told her to wait, but in the end, she was still living filled with sound and color, while those who spoke harshly all went to hell. So she never spoke harshly to anyone. She was always just a proactive person. After the crown prince of Nanshuan left, Lu Muyen and her party went to the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance to exchange for the auction items. Lu Muyen was taken to a special private room and was personally received by Manager Jiang. "Young Miss Lu, here are the several items you won today, you can count them." Manager Jiang pushed a few boxes in front of Lu Muyen and said. Lu Muyen checked them once, and after noting that there weren't any problems, she handed the spiritual stones she prepared to Manager Jiang. "I've troubled Manager Jiang today. Young Miss Lu is being too polite. It is this one's honor to serve young Miss." After being polite with Lu Muyen a little more, Manager Jiang suddenly said to Lu Muyen, as if having remembered something, "Young Miss Lu, Great Master Wu once explained that the person who won the summer light boat should drip blood to be recognized as the owner as soon as possible." "Why?" Lu Muyen asked in befuddlement. According to him, this flying magic tool had only just been refined, and there will be unexpected gains within a month of recognizing the owner by dripping blood. So young Miss Lu might as well give it a try. Manager Jiang said with a smile. Lu Muyen's gaze deepened, but she revealed a look of joy on her face. "Thank you for reminding me, I'll try it when I get back to the inn." Then this one Jiang here wishes young Miss Lu good luck. After Lu Muyen said goodbye to Manager Jiang, she went out of the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance with Yi Qin Han and the others. As soon as she walked out of the door, she saw Luo Li and several others waiting for her. "Lu Muyen, what are your plans for the time being?" Luo Li stepped forward and smiled handsomely. Lu Muyen smiled warmly. "We're going to stay in the central city and wait for the finals." "That sounds like a good choice, and we're not going to go out anymore either. Come over when you have time and let's have a drink." Luo Li invited. Lu Muyen nodded, "Sure." Si Nan and the others still had things to do, so they greeted her, then went their separate ways. After returning to the inn, Lu Muyen wasn't in a hurry to drip blood to be recognized as the owner. She took out that insidious earth-rank sword skill and the flying-type magic tool. When her eyes glanced towards the flying magic tool, her dark pupils grew deeper and darker. She picked up the magic tool and looked at it, then halted when looking at a place where complicated patterns were carved on the hull. A sneer appeared on her lips. This flying-type magic tool could be regarded as a fine product among top-quality saint tools. It was basically flawless, but as she expected, there was a problem. At the same time, sitting in a secret basement in the central city was a pale man who looked around 30 years old. In front of him was a mirror made of spar, the same material as the crystal wall used by the 6 major sects to monitor the competition space. The situation of the auction was played in the mirror, and the image on the mirror disappeared when Lu Muyen returned to the inn. The reflection array set up in the competition space cannot map the image of the residential area of the central city. This was also to ensure the privacy of the sword masters. The man with a pale face and lips that were bewitchingly red walked to the ice bed one behind him. Lying on the ice bed was a beautiful woman in white. Her face was paler than the man's and bloodless. Her aura was faint, and she was like a dead person. If other people at the auction were here, they would be a little surprised, because the woman lying on the ice bed actually looked a bit similar to Lu Muyen. "Ling Qiu, I've finally found someone who has the same bloodline relationship as you, with a soul that is a good fit for your soul." The man reached out and stroked the woman's face with gentle eyes. As long as you devour her soul and refine it, we will be able to reunite again. He held the woman's cold hand and placed it on his lips with his eyes closed. Then he furrowed his brows and muttered to himself, why hasn't she dropped her blood to be recognized as owner yet after so long? If the usual sword master heard the words that he told the Ming Chamber of Commerce Alliance to tell, then they would have long felt impatient and dripped blood to be recognized as owner. That little girl sure could remain calm. He sighed and continued to pour out his heart to the sleeping woman. You have been sleeping for 100 years. Who would understand my loneliness? No matter what means I use, I must wake you up. It would be troublesome if the girl named Lu Mu Yen didn't drip blood to have the flying magic tool recognize her as owner. He divined that the person who would win the flying type magic tool would be a junior who had a certain connection with his beloved wife and would also be the person he was looking for. He originally thought that hiding a soul refining array in that flying magic tool would be enough to directly arrest the soul of the junior here, but he didn't expect that she was still calm until now to not have dripped blood to be recognized as owner. There was a haze and determination in his eyes. If Lu Mu Yen still had not yet dripped blood, then he could only secretly break the rules of the competition space and go catch her in person. Fortunately, he was currently one of the judges representing the smithing pavilion for this tournament for hegemony, otherwise it would have been more difficult to act. He just hoped that Lu Mu Yen would just drip the blood herself as soon as possible to save him from risking himself to act. Meanwhile, Lu Mu Yen, who he was hoping would fall into his trap, didn't pay attention to the flying magic tool at all, but instead, put all her energy into the earth-rank sword skill that was known to be insidious. So the ice bed is apparently made from something, but don't know what it is because it was censored too low. Maybe 1,000-year-old profound ice or something, who knows. Lu Mu Yen took the earth-rank sword skill and flipped it back and forth, then pondered. Owner, this book gives me a bad feeling. Bing Ji was lost in thought as he looked at the sword skill with dislike. Lu Mu Yen raised her eyes. What's the bad feeling? This sword skill makes people feel extremely cold with just a few glances, as if a poisonous snake waiting for an opportunity to bite my neck. Bing Ji shrank his neck. Lu Mu Yen furrowed her brows slightly, then took Meow Meow from her wrist. Meow Meow, do you feel this way? Owner, although I don't feel this way, but this book gives me a sinister and evil feeling. I don't like it. Meow Meow resolutely wrapped around Lu Mu Yan's wrist again, staying far away from the book. Owner, I also hate the aura in this book. Shue Shue said. Lu Mu Yen probed into the spirit beast ring with her mental energy and found that Mo Yen was still sleeping. Her brows were knitted deeply, and she reached out to open the sword skill. The words in the sword skill weren't written in the common language of this continent, but it was a kind of silver scorpion language, which she had learnt in the immortal cultivation world. Placing her mind into the words of the book and interpreting it little by little, she gradually became enchanted. Time flew fast, and a day went by in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, a faint black aura emerged from the book in Lu Mu Yan's hand and penetrated into her nose. Slowly, Lu Mu Yan's eyes were half closed, as if she was about to fall asleep. And her eyes began to grow jaded, as if she were being controlled by something. Bing Ji was shocked when he saw this and urgently shouted, Owner, Owner. Meow Meow and Shue Shue tugged Lu Mu Yan's arm at the same time and shouted Owner together, wanting to awaken her consciousness. But no matter what method they tried, they couldn't awaken Lu Mu Yan. Bing Ji's eyes revealed some ruthlessness, then he stretched out his claws, wanting to grab the sword skill in Lu Mu Yan's hand and throw it away. It must be this insidious sword skill that made Owner lose her consciousness. But before his claws even touched the sword skill, he was entangled in a wisp of black aura that suddenly emerged from the book, and he was unable to get rid of it no matter what. The three demonic beasts couldn't cut the black aura with their demonic energy either, and they couldn't help but feel anxious. Then, the wisps of black aura continued to climb along Lu Mu Yan's hand. When it was right about to enter through her temples, Lu Mu Yan, who was originally jaded, suddenly opened her eyes, with sharpness in her gaze. She recited a few spells, and with a little tap, a jade-colored rune belt instantly bound the black aura. Then she turned the palm of her hand, and a cluster of purple cold flames emerged. She lightly yelled, Go! The purple gold spirit flame then turned into a small fire snake and slipped into that sword skill. In only a short while, the whole book was shrouded in darkness. Lu Mu Yan stretched out her hand and pulled, and the black aura that bound Bing Ji's feet were torn apart and disappeared. Owner, are you alright? Bing Ji looked at the sword skill that was already enveloped by a dense dark fog, no longer able to see what was within, with lingering fears. What is this? Lu Mu Yan shook her head. I'm fine. You'll know what it is in a bit. There was a hint of coldness on her lips. She kept forming seals and inserting them into the sword skill. After doing everything, she closed her eyes and started to rest. After around a quarter of an hour, she opened her eyes and said to the book, How does it feel to have your soul roasted? You still won't reveal your true form? As soon as her voice fell, a black mist emerged from the book, then turned into a dark figure whose face couldn't be seen clearly. You've long discovered me? The man's voice was very hoarse and concealed the suppressed pain from being burned by spirit flames. Lu Mu Yan stretched out an arm and leaned on a fist languidly. I only discovered you when you performed your soul disorienting skill on me. Of course, although she didn't feel the sinister aura like her three spirit pets did, but she could smell a faint bloody scent from the pages of the sword skill. So she placed her mental energy on the pages to investigate the content of the sword skill. What surprised her was that although this sword skill was only an earth-rank sword skill, but the 10 sets of sword techniques within truly astonished her. While she read, she was slowly enchanted, but because of her initial vigilance, she also released a part of her mental energy for surveillance outside. Sure enough, when she was enchanted by it, a powerful foreign aura suddenly burst out and cast an advanced soul disorienting skill on her. If it weren't that she had already recovered her mental energy and even advanced, she would have really capsized in the gutter this time. Gasp! The man took a deep breath as the purple gold spirit flame burned him. What do you want? He never imagined that a mere sword monarch would not only be able to discover his existence, but also have such powerful mental energy to resist his soul disorienting skill, and also own a purple gold spirit flame that could restrain all evil things. If I guessed correctly, you wanted to devour my divine soul just now, right? Lu Muyan's voice was cold. The divine soul of a person was one's soul and mental energy. Once it was devoured by the opponent, one would become an idiot. At best, one would become like the former owner of the sword skill Nan and the others mentioned, their cultivation base becoming stagnant and having no fate on the road to the strong. This man's actions really stepped on Lu Muyan's baseline. Since you've seen through it, then this eminence has nothing to say. The man's voice was filled with unwillingness and despair. Humph. If you have nothing to say, then go die. Lu Muyan's eyes grew cold, and the purple gold spirit flame instantly burst out of the pages and wrapped around the man. The man didn't expect the woman opposite to be so ruthless. His whole body was burned by the spirit flame as if it were about to melt. If this continued, he wouldn't even have the chance to snatch a body and reincarnate. Stop. Stop. The man said with a bit of pain, this eminence will make a deal with you to ensure that not only will you not suffer, but you will also gain a lot. Lu Muyan narrowed her eyes, thought for a bit, then beckoned with her hands for the purple gold spirit flame to return. Don't play any tricks, or I can kill you at any moment. This man had only 1/10 of their ghost spirit aura left yet was still so powerful. In addition, he called himself this eminence, so his origin must be extraordinary. If it weren't for the purple gold spirit flame, she wouldn't be able to do anything about him either, and instead, she might even receive backlash. What kind of tricks can be played when this eminence is like this? The man laughed at himself. Are you a mystic cultivator one? Lu Muyan's tone was affirmative. The man was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting Lu Muyan to see through his identity before his physical body was destroyed, but there was also nothing to hide. Yes. Tell me, what will you use to make a deal with me? She discovered that many people she met liked to make deals with her, but she was indeed a little interested in hearing about it. With a thought, the black mist surrounding the sword skill all entered his body, and strands of black energy quickly repaired his weakened soul that had been scorched earlier. Lu Muyan narrowed her eyes. The aura this ghost spirit mystic cultivator exuded was currently so weak, and yet was still not weaker than that of a peak phase sword sovereign. When his body was not yet damaged, he was probably so powerful that countless high-level sword masters would even have to look up to him. You must know of the land of inheritance. Only after the man's soul was automatically repaired did he speak slowly. Lu Muyan's eyes sharpened. The deal you want to discuss with me is about the land of inheritance? One might change this translation of mystic cultivator up later, or stick with it, I'm not sure. I even considered fiend cultivator, but it sounded too evil. The thing is, I translated to demonic beast, to devil cultivator and to demon cultivator. Lu Muyan guessed that this ghost spirit should have been attached to the sword skill in the land of inheritance. She was more and more interested in the deal he mentioned now. The man's voice in the black mist was still hoarse and low. This eminence can open a great hall in the land of inheritance. There are not only manuals in there, but also magic tools, pills, and such left by that man. You're not going to tell me that the owner of that hall is you, will you? Naturally not. When this eminence's physical body was destroyed, and my soul shattered and fled, this stray soul was dragged into a spatial storm, and that was how it inexplicably entered the land of inheritance. He felt that the woman across from him was young, but definitely experienced, so she would easily discover if he lied. Since he wanted to make a deal, then as long as it didn't involve his own secrets, he had nothing to hide. Lu Muyan nodded with a thoughtful gaze and asked, are all your 10 wisps of split souls still alive? The man was hidden in the black mist, so his face couldn't be seen, but his stiffened body still revealed his shock. How do you know this eminence has 10 split souls? His voice was cold. Naturally, I felt it from your current soul's weakened degree. This is one of my secret skills. Lu Muyan's meaning was very clear. I won't tell you my secret skill. She only said aloud the situation with the man's split souls to make him fear her, and it would be more beneficial for when they negotiated. The man secretly sighed in relief. It was the first time he met this woman, so it was impossible for her to see through his identity, let alone in this small interface. This eminence has been wandering in that palace for a century, and it has been marked with my soul imprint, so that place can be accessed freely by me. The man paused, then said. Then how can you be sure that I can enter the land of inheritance? Lu Muyan asked with a smile. The purpose of you participating in the Tianling continent tournament for hegemony should be to join the 6 major sects, right? The man asked instead. Yes. The land of inheritance is about to open. As long as you enter the 6 major sects, you will have a chance to obtain a place to enter. With your ability, this eminence believes it isn't difficult. This woman's cultivation base wasn't high, but she was just so damned shrewd. Lu Muyan took out some spiritual tea and slowly brewed it. Not long after, a serene tea fragrance wafted out, and the man's gaze dimmed. What do you want in exchange? Lu Muyan asked while holding the teacup. Help this eminence strengthen this wisp of split soul. The man responded. Lu Muyen stared at the clear and fragrant tea in the cup, then said after a while, "Sure. Let's establish a partner relationship first, then we can discuss further trades after we can trust each other." The identity of this man when he was alive was definitely not simple, and was also quite mysterious. It aroused her interest, so it was alright to play with him a little. "Alright," the man said without hesitation. If this woman could be trusted, then they could indeed cooperate on a lot more things. With a thought, Lu Muyen took out a 1,000-year-old icebox. After opening it, she could detect the man's scorching gaze. "You actually have the soul-nourishing wood, that sort of divine item." The man couldn't resist but exclaim. Lu Muyen ignored him, and with a sweep of her hand, a golden knife was held in her hand. She chopped off a section of the soul-nourishing wood and quickly carved it up with the knife. Not long after, a wooden pendant took shape in her hands. She then took out a few spiritual stones and arranged a spirit-nourishing array, sealed it in the pendant, then hung it round her neck with a red thread. She originally wanted to make a bracelet to wear on her hand, but the bracelet shue transformed into already took that place, so she could only carve it into a pendant. "You can stay in this soul-nourishing wood pendant to recuperate. I've set up a spirit-nourishing array which can absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and cooperate with the soul-nourishing wood to nourish your soul." Lu Muyen raised her eyes and looked at the man, saying slowly. This piece of soul-nourishing wood that was originally dead was brought back to life by the green mist spiritual energy in her body, and it even grew fresh shoots. Therefore, the carved ornaments had the effect of normal soul-nourishing wood. "Alright, then this eminence won't be polite." After he finished speaking, the man turned into a wisp of black aura and entered the pendant on Lu Muyen's neck. With his means and vision, he could naturally tell that Lu Muyen didn't do anything suspicious to the array and soul-nourishing wood. "Since we're in a partner relationship, then don't call yourself this eminence in front of me in the future," Lu Muyen said after cleaning up the sawdust on the ground. The man sighed, "Alright. The soul-nourishing wood is a divine rank spiritual item. If I hang it around my neck, then some powerhouses might see through it. With your abilities, you should be able to camouflage it, right? She would definitely not be soft-hearted and do anything herself if she could enslave others to do it." "I can." After the man finished speaking, a trace of black aura emerged from the pendant to wrap around it. In a moment, the color of the pendant became much lighter, and the aura of the soul-nourishing wood on it disappeared completely. Even Lu Muyen couldn't discover it. This also made her more certain of this man's extraordinary origin. Maybe it would be risky to take in this man whose physical body was destroyed, but she liked challenges. After the two reached an agreement, the man began to cultivate while hiding in the pendant. The next morning, a very pleasant bell rang through the central city. Lu Muyen opened her eyes and a smile appeared on her lips. The semi-finals is over. She took out her identity jade tablet, and there was indeed a notice to gather in the central square. It was almost time, so she went to the central square with Yi Qing Han and the others. The person who appeared in the sky this time was an elderly man with a thin face. As soon as he appeared, the surrounding air became turbulent. Even if he restrained the aura on him, but the pressure of a powerhouse was still subconsciously revealed. The originally noisy central square instantly quieted down, waiting for the sword venerable powerhouse above to speak. "I announce that the semi-finals of the Tianling Continent Tournament for Hegemony is officially over, and we will now enter the finals." The elderly man's words were very concise. The top 500 ranked in the standings in the semi-finals will enter the finals. The finals will no longer adopt the point system. The specific rules will be sent to your new identity jade tablets through an array. Now, take a look at the rankings on your identity jade tablets. Those outside of the top 500, stand on the left to wait to be teleported out of the competition space. The 500 people who entered the finals, stand to the right and wait for your new unified identity jade tablet to be distributed. Soon, two groups of people formed in the central square. Not long after, several people in uniformed clothes took back the jade tablets of Lu Muyen and the others, then distributed new jade tablets uniformly. The jade tablets of all 500 people were red. Your jade tablets are now uniformly red regardless of the size of your kingdom. If you want to advance to the top 100, the color of the jade tablet in your hands must at least be cyan. If you want to be promoted into the top 10, then your identity jade tablet must rise to purple. The elderly man swept the 500 people that entered the finals with his gaze once. This old man will not say more about the specific rules. After you return, open your identity jade tablets to check in detail. Finally, I wish you all good results. After he finished speaking, he turned around and disappeared in midair, acting very capable and experienced. Lu Muyen held the new identity jade tablet in her hand with a look of anticipation in her eyes. Previous chapter.